Embark on a journey into the heart of ancient Greek mythology, a world where the line between good and evil was not a stark chasm but a fluid, often invisible, boundary. We are exploring the origin of the term demon, a word that today conjures images of pure malevolence, of fiery pits and pitchforks, but whose genesis in the ancient world was something entirely different and far more nuanced. My investigation begins not with a monster, but with a question that challenges our modern understanding. How did the benevolent or neutral daimon of ancient Greece evolve into the evil demon of our contemporary lexicon? This transformation is a tale of linguistic shift, philosophical development, and religious appropriation that rewrote a spiritual concept, turning a guiding spirit into a source of all wickedness. The story starts with the ancient Greek word daimon, a term that originally held no negative connotation whatsoever. In the works of Homer, it was used almost interchangeably with theos for a god, with the distinction that theos emphasized the personal identity of the deity, while daimon referred to their activity or power. For instance, a sudden gust of wind or an unexpected stroke of luck might be attributed to a daimon unseen, supernatural force at work. It was the unpredictable dynamic force behind events, a sort of divine intervention not necessarily tied to a named god. The earliest conceptualization saw these daimons as the souls of men from the Golden Age, a mythical time of peace and innocence, who are now invisibly roaming the earth as benevolent spirits, guardians of mortals, and dispensers of justice. An idea later formalized by Hesiod. This idea of a daimon as a guiding spirit took root in philosophical thought, most famously with Socrates. He claimed to have a daimonion that would frequently warn him against making mistakes, though it never told him what to do. This inner voice was his spiritual guide, a personal oracle connecting him to the divine. Plato further explored this concept, describing daimons as intermediaries between gods and mortals, interpreting and transporting human things to the gods and divine things to men. This vision placed the daimon in a crucial mediating role, a spiritual messenger that allowed for communication between the mortal and immortal realms. The implication of this line was staggering, for it meant that the gods did not descend to the human realm. Rather, it was the daimons that brought the gods' will to us and our prayers to them. The records tell a different story entirely than what we understand today. The first significant reframing of the daimon came with later Hellenistic and philosophical thought, which began to draw a distinction. A dualistic system emerged, classifying these spirits into agathodaimons or good spirits, and kakademons or malevolent spirits. This was a crucial evolution, as it introduced the possibility of an evil daimon. But it still didn't equate the entire category with malevolence. The concept of eudaimonia, which we translate as happiness or well-being, literally meant having a good daimon. This shows that the original, positive association was still dominant. The discovery of this clear, ethical distinction reordered our understanding of the term. The old view saw all daimons as essentially neutral or benevolent. But now a precise division was made, paving the way for a more sinister interpretation. The final and most dramatic turning point, however, was not Greek at all. It came with the rise of Christianity. The Hebrew Bible, translated into Greek as the Septuagint, used the Greek word daimonion to translate the Hebrew terms for idols and false gods. This was the first major step in demonizing the concept, as it equated Greek spirits with the pagan deities that Christians were rejecting. But the final, definitive reshaping occurred in the New Testament, also written in Greek, where the term was used exclusively to refer to unclean spirits or demons that Jesus cast out. The meaning was utterly inverted. The Christian narrative needed a clear and powerful counterpoint to God and his angels, and the ambiguous, morally complex Greek daimon was an easy target for this ideological recasting. It was taken from its role as a spiritual intermediary and redefined as a force of pure, hostile evil, a minion of Satan himself. This discovery forced a complete re-examination of the word's entire history. The most plausible explanation for this dramatic semantic shift is the need for theological clarity. Greek mythology was rich with a pantheon of gods and a spectrum of spiritual beings that existed in a morally gray area. Christianity, in contrast, established a monotheistic system with a clear dichotomous struggle between good and evil. To assert the supremacy of its single God and the moral authority of its teachings, all other spirits had to be categorized as either divine angels or demonic devils, with no room for a neutral or ambivalent middle ground. The once fluid concept of the daimon was therefore simplified and weaponized to fit a new, more rigid spiritual framework. Still unknown is how some of the most fearsome mythical monsters, like the Hydra or the Chimera, were not originally called demons, yet still fit our modern conception of one, suggesting an unresolved narrative thread between folklore and philosophy. The legacy of this transformation is immense. The word demon now carries a weight of fear and evil in Western culture, an archetype used in everything from horror films to moral rhetoric. The Highway of Tears, a stretch of asphalt in British Columbia, Canada, that has become a somber symbol of the systemic vulnerability of Indigenous women and girls, has seen a constellation of unsolved cases. My investigation into this case started not with a suspect, but with a simple, unsettling question. How could so many disappearances and murders over decades, many with similar profiles, remain unsolved and seemingly unrelated? The story is not about a single serial killer, but the chilling possibility that one or more predators operated along this vulnerable route, leaving a pattern of disappearances that extends well beyond the mid-1970s, stretching from the 1960s to the 1960s to the Unsolved. Many of these cases remain unsolved despite the breakthrough that linked 3 victims, Monica Ignas, Colleen McMillan, and Gail Ways, to a specific man, Bobby Jack Fowler, who had died in an Oregon prison. The official narrative, which once saw these as isolated tragedies, was suddenly replaced by the terrifying truth of a confirmed serial predator. Yet this provisional conclusion left a significant number of cases unexplained, a missing page in the records, a gap in the timeline that suggests the possibility of multiple killers. The sheer volume of missing women along this route over decades points to a complex, systemic issue rather than the work of just one man, a stark reminder of the vulnerability faced by those in remote communities. To explore the unresolved lead of the demon origin further, the investigation into how cultural beliefs are forged from linguistic and philosophical shifts continues. The story of the Highway of Tears and the origin of the term demon might seem like 2 separate narratives, but they are linked by a common thread: the transformation of a complex, often ambiguous reality to a simplified, powerful narrative that shapes our understanding of fear, evil, and the unseen forces at work in our world.